when do you actually become a traveler? When do you actually become a Musafir? So we will start with that first. So when a person intends on traveling 48 miles, and some say 54 and a half English miles. The reason for there being two different opinions is that initially the scholars, what they said, that a person will be a Musafir ثلاثة أيام ولياليها, when they travel for 3 nights and 3 days, and there was no distance that was fixed. So the scholars that came later on, they tried putting this into a distance, and the two common opinions were 48 English miles and 54 and a half English miles. So whichever opinion you want to follow, you can follow that, but you then must stick by it. 48 miles or 54 and a half miles. So when a person intends on traveling 48 or 54 and a half miles, they will be classed as a traveler once they leave their home city. Once they leave the home city. And another thing is that this 48 miles, I'll just, instead of repeating both opinions, I will just say 48 miles, that this 48 miles will be measured from the city that you are traveling from to the city you are traveling to. It will not be from the house you are traveling from to the house you are traveling to. So obviously, usually when we type in maps, we'll put our home address in and the home address of wherever we are traveling to. So for example, if that is 50 miles, 51 miles, you'll have a rough assumption that from city to city, this may fall below the threshold. So the measurement must be from city to city. And one more thing as well is if there are two journeys to a destination, two journeys. For example, one would be just go straight on the motorway to get to your destination, and the other would be motorway and then an inside route, maybe another motorway, and the distance of both is different. One, for example, would be 48 miles where you would actually do qasr, and one would fall below the threshold. So would you do qasr or not? The answer is, it depends on whichever route you take. If you take the route that was more than 48 miles, then you will do qasr. If you take the other route, you will not do qasr. So when a person intends on traveling 48 miles, then he will become a Musafir once he leaves his home city. So for example, in Bury, I would say, maybe when we get past, the BP petrol pump, so after that, there aren't really any homes. So once you leave the final house of that city, you can say, that's when you will become a traveler. And this is what, when I was asked this question a few weeks ago, the actual question was, is that when I reach Manchester Airport, will I do qasr there or not? Even though from Bury to Manchester, maybe 20, 30 miles, I've not traveled over 48 miles. So what is the answer? Do you think that person is a Musafir or not? Not yet? He will be. The reason being is, like we said, that if he intends to travel more than 48 miles, as soon as he leaves his home city, regardless of how many miles he's traveled, he will be a Musafir. So once you get to Manchester Airport, for example, you will be a Musafir and you will do qasr. And then also understand the two benefits, the two rukhsats, you can say the two leniencies of becoming a traveler in Islam. Number one is qasr, a reduction in the rakats in your salah. So the 4 rakat prayers, for example, we have Isha will be read as 2, you have Zuhr, from 4 you will read 2, and we have Asr from 4 you will read 2. And the Fajr prayers, they're 2, we're not going to make them into 1, and Maghrib, you're obviously not going to read 1.5, they will stay 2 and 3 respectively. So that is the one faidah in terms of namaz. And number 2, the other benefit is in, does anybody know? When you become a Musafir, you get the benefit in fasting. That you will have an option of keeping the fast and not keeping the fast. And again, there is a side note to this, is if you are planning to travel. So for example, you are still at home when Sehri time finishes. You are planning to travel later on in the day, you won't have the option. The option is once you have actually started your journey. So if you have started your journey before Sehri time has finished, you will have the option of fasting and not fasting. But if you were still at home, then it will be necessary for you to fast that day. And one last thing regarding this is this traveling. So, for example, you travel to Pakistan, but when you are in Pakistan, if you are intending to stay there for more than 15 days, then you will not do qasr. So from here until you get to Pakistan, you will do qasr. But if you are planning I will start again with that because that's a wrong example. If you are traveling from here to Pakistan and you are intending to stay in one city in Pakistan the whole duration for more than 15 days, example, Islamabad, you want to stay there for 15 days, then you will not do qasr whilst you are there in Islamabad. But for example, there are people from here, we go for Umrah, and we are staying in Saudi Arabia for over 15 days. However, we will still do qasr there. Why? Because, for example, we are planning to stay in Makkah Sharif for 10 days and in Medina Sharif for 5-6 days. So because there are two different locations, two different cities, we will be able to do qasr. So that was the answer for when does a person become